The Ioniq 5 has all the makings of becoming a major player in the EV market.
Shopping, pick-up and drop-off, errands and going to the recycling centre. Daily and weekly tasks that require something a bit more substantial than your manual two-seater we'd all love to drive in an ideal world. And for those who are realistic, there is the Ioniq 5. In many respects, Hyundai and Kia are leading the latest electric car revolution. You could argue that they are following on from BMW's i3, which is unfortunately soon to cease production, also Renault Zoe or the Nissan Leaf. And these are cars that didn't arrive with a 400 to 500 kilometre range or affordable price tags. The Ioniq 5 is new from the ground up, but does it do enough to separate itself from its stablemates as well as the ICE competition? The Ioniq 5 is our first taste of Hyundai's upcoming generation of electric cars, which shares much of its hardware with Kia's EV6. The available range stands at between 384 and 480 kilometers depending on which Ioniq 5 you go for. Its talent is how fast it can charge. When you hook it up to an ultra-rapid public charger, it will go from 10 to 80% in just 18 minutes. That's 338 kilometers in 18 minutes. But charges like this are still quite rare and expensive. While the infrastructure is improving all the time, it's still not a given that you will get these quick charging rates. The interior is very minimalist. Where old Kona and the new Ioniq models cross over is their use of a lot of grey, dull plastics. Some might argue a white interior is impractical for the family car buyers that this car is so squarely aimed at, and so dark colours are probably best suited to those with active children and active lifestyles. As for the infotainment screens, the 12.3-inch screens dominate the dashboard, and the typeface will feel familiar to existing Hyundai owners. The menus are pretty logical, but everything within these two displays has been refreshened up for the Ioniq 5. The central screen is responsive, and even entry-level models get sat-nav plus Apple and Android connectivity. The climate control is operated by a touch-sensitive panel, and while the system is better than the one you'll find in a Volkswagen ID4, they're still not that intuitive to use. The flat flush panels may look great, but rotary dials and switches are still the most utilitarian. Comfort, quality, and the general ambience of the cabin is right up there with the best cars in this class. Hyundai has a history of putting all of its resources into the exterior design and leaving the cabin as a bit of an afterthought, but that's no longer the case. If it was our money, we'd look at the mid-spec models, which come with those twin screens, dual climate control, fast charging, and all the safety kit you could need. There are two batteries to choose from, a 58 kWh and a 73 kWh battery. The bigger of those two brings a bit more power, whilst four-wheel drive adds an extra motor to the front axle, upping the power. The range topper boasts 300 brake horsepower, and you can tell the moment you pull away from a standstill that the output is pretty significant, and it's available from the off with the 0 to 100 km/h time in just 5.2 seconds, which is not only faster than a Volkswagen ID4 GTX, but a lot of petrol-powered hot hatchbacks too. You'd be right to consider that because the Ioniq 5 weighs just under 2 tons, it might feel a little bit uneasy in the corners. But actually, because the battery is mounted so low down, it handles rather nicely. The steering isn't super sharp, but there's very little body roll. It always feels secure, so you've no problem placing the car exactly where you want with confidence. A Ford Mustang Mach-E is more fun, if that's the kind of thing that matters to you. The smaller 19-inch wheels can make the ride feel a little bit fidgety, but go for the 20s and you'll be set. That said, all of the worst lumps, bumps and imperfections are soaked up by comfortable leather seats. Even the cheapest model does a 0 to 100 km/h in about 8.5 seconds without sacrificing much in handling. The amount of range you'll manage depends on the model you go for. The smaller battery rear-wheel drive cars officially return 384 kilometers, while those with a bigger battery should do 500 kilometers. The four-wheel drive model sits somewhere in between, returning a real-world range of 400 and 500 kilometers. It's not as good as the longest range Mustangs, but competitive in the class. If you can charge at home using a 7 kilowatt wall box, it will top up overnight in a little under 12 hours. The Hyundai Ioniq 5 is based on a completely bespoke electric platform, so it doesn't share any of its DNA with the petrol or diesel model like the Hyundai Kona does. Now that works wonders for practicality. Perhaps the floor is a little bit high, so you do have to hook things up into the boot, but it's no worse than you'll find on one of this car's SUV rivals. At least it's got a hatchback opening rather than the Tesla Model 3's saloon style opening. Boot space measures 527 litres, which is almost a match for the ID4. Folding the seats down, you'll find 1600 litres of space, which is bigger than conventional petrol hatchback rivals and plenty for what most family buyers will use this car for. Considering the space throughout the rest of the cabin, the space in the front is pretty poor, but big enough to stow the 3-pin plug cable should you need it in an emergency. Unlike many electric cars, the Ioniq 5 has been officially rated for towing depending on which one you go for. It's 750 to 1600 kilos. The wheelbase is actually 2mm longer than you'll find in an Audi A8. This means that there's loads of space to stretch out, acres of knee room, and enough headroom for 6-footers. The completely flat floor means that it's even practical for someone to sit in the middle seat. The long wheelbase does mean that the rear doors are pretty long, which can prove challenging in tight car parks. But if you've got the space, those doors do make fitting a child seat nice and easy. The Ioniq 5 will charge almost as quickly as a Porsche Taycan, despite costing thousands less. You can add 340 kilometers in 18 minutes, and the benefits of this car's electric-only platform are clear as there's so much space inside and a massive boot too. No matter which Ioniq you go for, you get twin 12.3-inch displays and loads of standard kit. The plush seats absorb some of the bumps and lumps of badly pockmarked roads. The Kia e-Niro and the Hyundai Kona Electric are the benchmark affordable long-range EVs, and this feels like the logical next step. The design ensures it's infinitely more desirable than those two cars and is absolutely brimming with tech. You can charge quickly as long as you have access to super fast chargers that give the full blast. With interesting and individual looks that set it apart from the crowd, Hyundai has added to the Ioniq 5's curb appeal with competitive standard spec, reasonable pricing, and advanced, if annoying, active safety systems. The Ioniq 5 is a large family EV which chases the premium electric rivals. It's looking to persuade EV buyers who are motivated by stylish design, good onboard tech, and practical range that it's worth considering a brand they may not have looked at previously. Range from a full charge in the Ioniq 5 doesn't necessarily stand out compared with its rivals, but the charging speed definitely does. The maximum rate of 220 kilowatts means you'll get the 10 to 80% in just 18 minutes with a 350 kilowatt public rapid charger, which is half the time an ID4 could take. Every Ioniq 5 has that ultra fast charging ability as standard too, but there aren't that many locations capable of delivering this. There'll be more in the future, of course, but it's going to be quite some time before they're as common as the supercharger network available for Teslas. Reliability for the Ioniq should be good as Hyundai has an excellent record. The Ioniq 5 brings such a breadth of ability that other electric family cars can only dream of. It's an absolute showstopper to look at. It is a thoroughly usable and appealing interior, which is brimming with technology and neat tricks. It's quick, and its handling treads a fine balance between sporty and comfortable.